2025 is going to be the biggest year yet. We're at the beginnings of a health and wellness supercycle. Well, Moonwalk does it by putting you in group contests with a daily step goal, but you put money on the line essentially to say that you're going to hit a step goal every single day. And if you hit your step goals every day, you get all of your money back.
GM, and welcome back to SolanaFloor. We are inches away from entering what many people believe is going to be the best year for crypto and the Solana ecosystem since 2021. But as we know by now, crypto is so unpredictable that most of our predictions have a way of making us look very silly in the long run. So to make sense of it all, I'm joined by Caitlin from Moonwalk Fitness. Caitlin, GM, and great to have you on again.
GM, thanks for having me.
So I'm going to start with perhaps the easiest question of them all. In your mind, Caitlin, is 2025 really going to be the best year for crypto so far?
Without a doubt. There's so much momentum going into the new year. I mean, I'm in the US, right? So I think the election from a crypto standpoint is obviously super bullish and excited there, working in this industry from the US. But I mean, just generally speaking too, if you look back on the past year and all of the institutions and all of the commentary and the money pouring into this space, it just feels like the momentum is taking a snowball effect and that 2025 is going to be the biggest year yet.
There seems to be a growing health and fitness focus within Web3 and certainly the Solana ecosystem. You've got wearables, Solana Mobile itself, and it's all pointing to a potentially higher number of touch points between crypto and our daily lives. Curious what your top predictions for 2025 are between that intersection of health and crypto. What is 2025 going to look like?
A little bit biased in my answer, but I do think first of all, we're going to see more projects that are catering to the health and wellness side of things, fitness industry as a whole. We're at kind of what I consider to be the beginnings of a health and wellness supercycle, right? We're in this age of abundance. You can essentially, there's more wealth being generated in the world than pretty much anything we've ever seen, right? Technology is improving, et cetera, but you can't buy time. And I do think that health and a focus on kind of optimizing for your health is going to be something that we see more and more of. We've seen, Brian Johnson and some others who are focusing on this, but I think it's going to become a bigger trend because it is really something that's within your control and something that you can always be optimizing for in a lot of different ways. I think we're going to see a lot of crypto projects that continue to build for health and wellness. It's a massive total addressable market, so something to be said for that. We've seen some teams beyond just Moonwalk building in that space on Solana in the past year. I think we're going to see more of that. And I do think that a fitness app built on chain is going to be one of the biggest breakout products for a mainstream audience. It's something that people can inherently understand where the benefit's coming from. And we've seen a lot of different approaches to it that I find pretty interesting. So would love to see one of those land at scale.
Exciting. So tell me about the iOS launch then and why you felt like now was the right time to do it.
Yeah, so Moonwalk is kicking off the year with the launch of its iOS app for Moonwalk. We're going to be following that up with an Android app launch in the weeks following. Just takes a little bit of extra dev work on the back end. But in terms of why this timing, we use 2024 essentially as a beta testing period within the Solana and broader crypto community. Devs have been working pretty tirelessly on the back end to kind of enhance the product, fix any bugs, think a little bit about where we want to go with it in 2025. And the perfect timing just happened to be starting the new year with an app launch. And I think it's perfect accidentally, I'll admit, that we're launching it at the time that people are making New Year's resolutions, because time and time again, we see people set these unrealistic resolutions, most of the time around physical and mental health, that end up being too difficult, unsustainable, or just fall flat. This is the perfect time to be launching an accountability product. So can't say that it was purposeful in the beginning of where we would go with, dev time and all of the work that would go in, but I can't think of a better way to kick off the new year than actually holding yourself accountable to fitness goals, unlike what most people have done in previous years, where maybe they set a goal, maybe they have good intentions about it, but they end up falling flat because they don't have a support system. It's maybe something that's a little bit too lofty of a goal. They don't have any accountability. I think this will help people take a different approach to that.
Obviously, in crypto, incentives and rewards have been sort of more of a talking point and a bit of a key activation method as well. I had airdrop season, points, user rewards, the whole shebang. So tell me about the reward system that you're sort of baking into Moonwalk for users, and how does that complement maybe the accountability as well?
Yeah. So the baseline incentives that Moonwalk has put in place are financial and social incentives. Crypto does financial incentives very well, to your point, in a lot of different ways. So the first way that we do that in most obvious way is in the game mechanics itself. So that essentially the way Moonwalk works is that we want to get people moving their body more every single day and being consistent with it. It's hard to build a habit. So how do you hold yourself accountable? Well, Moonwalk does it by putting you in group contests with a daily step goal, and you have to put up money to join that contest. And that's going to be Solana, USDC, or Bonk right now. But you put money on the line essentially to say that you're going to hit a step goal every single day. You're in a group setting. You can see how everyone else is kind of stacking up to you on their performance day to day. And if you hit your step goals every day, you get all of your money back. We just want to hold you accountable, and you don't get dinged for, being consistent in your goal. We want you to do that, right? So we're trying to direct people towards that behavior. And then the financial incentive part, which I think is the more fun aspect of it, especially for people in crypto, is that not only do you get your full deposit back if you stay consistent with your goals, you have the option or the ability to split a prize pool. And that prize pool is made up of partial deposits from those who miss on their steps. So there's a little bit of game theory in there, and a little bit of healthy competition as well, where you can control your outcome to an extent of making sure that you do what you say you're going to do. That's the main point. But we do have financial incentives as well for people who need a little bit of an extra push. And then there's the social incentives part of, being in a group setting, which is especially important for fitness, and kind of having that leaderboard of sorts to add a little competition to the mix, which I think is fun. We want to have different incentives that drive different types of people. And then lastly, which is much more crypto aligned, we do have an experience points program called Moonwalk Ascent. We have a global leaderboard with thousands of players on it right now. And essentially, we want to use it as a way to set up consistent users of the Moonwalk platform for future rewards. Haven't said what those rewards are. Obviously, a lot of options in this industry. But we've seen a lot of our community members have a lot of fun with that and kind of try to improve their rank, which can be done by joining contests and hitting goals. So all in line with bettering your health, but financial incentives, obviously a really big component of that.
Is it cheeky if I ask if you're going to do an airdrop?
No one on the Moonwalk team has made public mention of a token.
Okay, so far nothing in that case. Caitlin, to zoom out for a second, high-level thoughts on health, social, gamified activations, boosting adoption for the Solana ecosystem, dApps in general, Moonwalk. High-level thoughts on all of those things coming together in 2025.
I think we talked about this at Breakpoint actually, which is funny, and I still feel this way, is that we're finally seeing more teams with a focus on building and optimizing for mobile, which is going to be so important. Everyone around the world has a phone in their pocket, right? Or most people do, right? So we need to build for what people are, accessing the internet with most, and that is iOS and Android apps, especially Android apps. Android has, I think, 70% of the market share as well. So seeing teams that are catering to that more specifically from an accessibility standpoint, I think is so important. We've seen it a lot more this year than ever before, but I do think that that's going to be a much bigger theme going into next year. And I mean, just in terms of use cases, right? Like we talk about every single year of like, what are the top projects that we think are going to get mass adoption? But I do truly feel like we've seen much more interesting ideas of what are large total addressable markets that people outside of the space are actually interested in, and how do we build something unique for them using the financial incentives and rails that blockchain provides, and making it kind of a fresh twist on that. I do think that 2025 is going to be the breakout year for on-chain consumer apps to mainstream, because we finally have the infrastructure in terms of wallet and login and all of the support that's kind of necessary to make a product that's actually accessible to non-crypto users. So there are a lot of things that needed to be put together kind of on the back end to really make that happen. And I think that's why we maybe haven't reached full potential there in a lot of ways. But I do think that we're finally getting to the kind of pivotal point of mass adoption, hopefully in 2025.
Okay, Caitlin, we are going to wrap up in a second. So I'm curious if you have any hot takes on the current intersection of health and crypto. Are things going wrong? Are people maybe using the wrong incentive mechanisms? Is there anything that you can see from your vantage point that you would say maybe is it the direction that we want to be moving in? Any hot takes?
Oh man, I'm gonna get myself in trouble here.
Not at all.
I think that, and this is a broader issue beyond just health and wellness. So not to say that this is specific to that, but it is a big one. is that you just see teams that maybe they're going down the right path, but then the way that users access the product is not inherently on like easy for new users to onboard to. Like you ask what the use case is for a product and they start explaining this super obscure pitch on decentralization or data privacy or whatever the case may be. Like most people are not going to care about that and you can't lead with that. That's not going to get broad exposure or broad adoption in the way that you think it will beyond the space. You're going to see maybe you'll have a decent user base in the crypto industry, but try scaling that out and talking to the normal person about it. If you're building a product that's similar to something outside of this space, it needs to be better than what you're competing against outside of the space. That's just a matter of fact. Like people are not going to switch from a product they're already using to something that is crypto native built on blockchain because they don't need to. They have a product that works for them just fine and that they're happy with the performance of it. So you have to come to them with something that's differentiated and very obviously superior in one way or another and make that really clear. I think we see a lot of teams, whether in the health and wellness side or not, building products that are already out there at a lower quality, and that's never going to get users onboarded.
Another one of these predictions, and I know we talked about this in Breakpoint as well. You know, we make predictions that 6 months later you look a little bit silly because everything changes so fast. But everyone thought meme coins would be still printing towards the end of the year and definitely into 2025. But most of them are down big time. You got the exception of AI and DeSci. Those narratives are continuing to gain steam at the moment. But do you think, on a personal note, meme coins are going to make a comeback, or are they going to become maybe the next NFT bust?
Oh man. I think that they still will. I'm not particularly like interested in that side of things, but it doesn't really seem like people are learning their lessons with, the people who are dropping these random like contract addresses and just like having people dump money into a token that they know nothing about. The rug pulls, the tokens that, obviously meme coins not necessarily utility focused, but we see people continuously go running this circuit, and I don't think that human behavior is going to change. So like, yes, maybe eventually there is a breaking point, but I'm surprised that we haven't hit it yet because of all of the kind of more silly things that have gone on. Like people are just going to continue repeating themselves, and hopefully there's a bit of a shift to something new in 2025 that's hopefully a little bit more productive, but I don't think that human behavior is going to change enough to get people to fully pull away from that in the communities that are formed both in NFTs and meme coins. Like you're going to see people continue to attempt that, and I think that the sort of leaders in the meme coin space are not going anywhere. There's going to be a lot of vaporware as well, but that's pretty much the entire industry in a nutshell, or any like fast-paced growing industry.
Where can we follow along with the developments of Moonwalk? And most importantly, when exactly can we get involved?
Yeah, so follow along on Twitter at Moonwalk Fitness. That's probably the easiest way to get any sort of updates. The iOS app is going to be available in the first week of January, which is super exciting. So if you're watching this and it's the first week of January, go to the App Store and you're able to download that. For Android, again, there's just some development work that needs to be done on the back end. We're targeting a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks after iOS app, but obviously that's all dependent on dev lift and feedback and testing. So we should have a full in-app experience live by the end of January, taking us into the rest of the year, which is great because great talking to SolanaFloor. We have a lot of really exciting announcements related to mass onboarding for Moonwalk and for Solana that have to do with some of the projects you're affiliated with. So I'm super excited about that. But we'll be putting more updates out on Twitter soon.
Excited, looking forward to it. Thank you very much again, Caitlin. Catch up soon.